My only thought, as I've asked you this before, I am just curious. You've seen La Pointe Courte, Cleo, 5 to 7 now, and now this one. So of the three, which one is your favorite?
That's tough. I want to watch Cleo again because I really loved that. But it's tough between that and Le Bonheur.
Yeah, the joke here, I guess, could be like you. Is it okay to love them all equally?
Yeah, right.
Agnès Varda. Agnès Varda.
She's back again with her third feature film. That feels crazy to say, only 3 so far.
That does feel crazy. Wow.
But yeah, here it is, Le Bonheur, Happiness. And you might prefer to go to the experts for your film opinions about films like Le Bonheur, but some like it unauthorized. And I am Jay Brooks Young.
And I'm Zach Domes.
It's 1965, and we're talking again about the French New Wave. Last week it was Jean-Luc Godard, The Glasses.
This week, The Left Bank, right?
Yes. Agnès Varda, someone who was taken for granted for a while, in more recent decades, has really risen in estimation as one of the most inventive, interesting directors that we've ever had. Everything I've watched from her, it's fun. It's thought-provoking. It's beautiful, gorgeous. Her first 2 features were in black and white, and the color in this is amazing. She had already made some color short films before this. She had done some commissions for tourism boards in France that had shot in color. So it feels like she's got the mastery, at this point. She kind of knows her way around color film, and it's so good.
So good. What was that one that we watched? It was the Chateau.
Yeah, oh Cezanne, oh Chateau.
Yeah, beautiful, and I don't know what she got commissioned to do and how exactly that was all planned out, but what she does there is innovative, and it's one of those things where the artist takes a project that doesn't necessarily need to be that amazing, and she makes it that. And to me, that's always the sign of like a true artist. Someone who takes like a simple commercial. These days, you'll see like directors take commercials, but they're given freedom to do it what they want, and so they have fun with it. And it always turns out interesting.
Yeah. She kind of, the ideas are sort of endless. And when I was watching Le Bonheur, I almost wanted to take a note for like every scene, every sort of beat, because there's always like something interesting that she seems to have in her head. And yeah, even those short films, there's like the bits where she's showing the shopping, like, this is the fun touristy thing you do. You'd go to these little shops in these towns, and it's stereotypical young women shopping, and then she shows like the older women, the people that live around there, just kind of doing their daily shopping, much more mundane, but very interesting to contrast that and to point out the sort of like touristy artifice and then what the real life of the people actually is.
Yeah. While she's doing that with her feature films, she seemed to, so far, the ones that we've seen up until here, Cleo 5 to 7 and La Pointe Courte, she's focusing on a protagonist. With La Pointe Courte, it's a couple, but with Cleo and this film, she's focusing on kind of protagonists and really bringing us into their life in a kind of intimate way, in a unique way too. It's hard to pin exactly how she's doing this, but I'm also thinking of Vagabond, which we saw, which she does decades later, kind of an immersive, intimate view of one particular or two people.
Yeah,
but doing it in a way that feels unique, you know?
Yeah, she brings that photographer's background, and there is something documentarian in what she does, where she wants to find something kind of interesting from the real world and bring that in. And especially something like Vagabond, right? It's sort of like based on a real story, and you're getting these like accounts that I believe are, real people who knew, the person that the character is based on, So it's kind of shot like a documentary a little bit, and there's something that happens in your brain, when it feels real, when it's sort of true to life, that you can't fake in a way. And in this film, yeah, it's interesting because the actor, Jean-Claude Drouot, is kind of playing a version of himself. That's his wife and his kids playing his wife and kids in the film. Apparently, Varda had gotten the idea for this film partially because he had just done a magazine feature about his life and his family and how like perfect and ideal it was. So she's bringing in that real life stuff in a kind of meta way, and examining, what's going on with the ideal family in France or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is what she's sort of criticizing here is not the kind of easier culprit, the easier person to critique, which would be something like a gangster, or a criminal, or a guy who isn't great, chauvinistic, and various things. What she's criticizing here is the dark side of a seemingly good guy, and a seemingly good family, and she's kind of exposing the hidden darkness there.
Right. It's this exploration of like, yeah, what does it mean if someone who, seems to be the perfect guy would go down this path?
Mm-hmm.
It makes you question, like, yeah, is this a normal guy? Does this feel like something that every man at that time would want, or like would imagine for their life or something? Or is he some kind of like sociopath, or is he bipolar or something? Is he, is there some kind of mania going on here? It just,
Yeah. I think a person, a man who, if let's say this is a realistic opportunity for a man, even of that age, I would assume that most men would have the rationality to not do this. I mean, the thing with humanity and humans being humans is like most people will do the first part and then not reveal what they've done. They'll just cheat. Like that's just what people have done most of the time, is they disclose it, or rather they don't disclose it, and they go on hiding it, and that seems like, in a weird way, that's not like psychopathic, because you realize that what you're doing is wrong, and if you tried to persuade this person that you say you love that would all be fine, you would come up against the irrationality of that. Like, you married, you committed to each other, and now you're trying to convince this person that you've committed to that this is all fine. I think most people cheat, and as wrong as that is, there's something, that in that protection, there is at least the decency to try to not hurt the other person, even though what you're actually doing is hurtful. By not disclosing, you're not actually hurting, so it feels like it's okay until the fateful day when, like, it's revealed, maybe obviously not by your doing.
Yeah.
And then that person gets hurt, and then there's this whole fallout of, you've been cheating on me, how could you? And the person is sad and upset, and everyone has to deal with that.
Yeah, this guy,
Here,
he's so high on his own supply. He's so sort of delusional as to believe that, like, this all makes sense. And he, he can find a way to rationalize this to his wife and get her on board with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the key point here, which we'll talk about more based on how the movie flows, but the key point is that even if this is maybe an ideal situation for a guy, it isn't realistic, but if it was ideal, the key point is that it would not be ideal for a woman at that time, even today. Like, the roles reversed look a lot darker in a way. Like, theoretically, if he did convince her, and then everything worked out fine, people at the time would look at him as maybe different, but not necessarily wrong. Probably more like, oh, he figured out a way to do it, or something like that. Whereas if a woman was to try to do this, even today, it would be looked at with a more critical eye. And I think that's one of the things she's exposing, is that gender gap, that gender flip.
Yeah, that crossed my mind, and it doesn't get broached. Like, would you let me do the same thing that you're doing? But it feels like, the most likely answer is no, he would not be okay with that ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of subtle in the film, at least at the time. I think it would be more subtle. It's sort of easier to read it now, but she's showing how Varda's showing how his wife has to take care of the kids constantly on top of working just as much as he works, that he has this time to run off with another woman. She is always busy with something, with the kids or something. Mm-hmm. And that this relationship, as much as it is an example of every sort of heterosexual relationship at that time, and in a lot of cases today, it is built on an imbalance. It is built on the woman giving much more labor for everyone, quote unquote, everyone to be happy, but for the man to ultimately be as happy as he can be. And part of why I say it's subtle is because Varda did get like some criticism from feminists, from women at the time for this film. The thing is, this kind of comes before the sort of widespread second wave feminism is really going to get going in the late 60s. And, I imagine it's after people are thinking more about labor and thinking about intersectionality and stuff that they, then kind of look back and recognize how sort of radical the stuff that she's showing is in this film,
Yeah. She's sort of hiding other details too, though. I think that's what makes this movie not just subtle, but also there's details that are subtle within it, that are hidden. I mean, I'm thinking now of, like, there's a particular moment as a wedding photographer I was very keen on.
Yeah.
This moment where you jump to a wedding taking place and a photographer photographing the family in a few different settings, and the photographs, the vibe that the family has is kind of like a little stoic, a little like kind of date, like a you get the sense that it was something that would have been done in the past, where people had to look at the camera without smiling because the camera may have taken a while to photograph them, and they're just looking stoically on their wedding day, which should be happy, full of life. You actually have this contrast between how he is and how the music is the whole film, and then that wedding is sort of like almost somber in comparison, almost stoic, and yet that's supposed to be the happiest day. There's a sense of like that contrast being like the reality. It's almost like she does a reversal. The wedding is more somber. The rest of his life is happy.
Yeah.
And most people, it would be the other way around, that wedding's your happiest day, and then it's a struggle throughout the rest of life.
Yeah, here's this ceremony, this seems to be the whole point, is you find a partner, you get married, you craft this life together, you know. This is what it's all about in some sense. And yeah, she is, you know, participating in that. And at the same time, he is off with his, you know, second woman. And yeah, so, you know, so happy. And we get these really intimate, expressive scenes with the like close-ups of their bodies and stuff, like, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, and not just that. There also seems to be a. I'm just thinking out loud here about the different details she puts into this. There's a. I don't know. The word coming to my mind is clerical. There's a sort of. There's a almost. It's too simple how things work out for these people. So like when he falls in love with that other woman, it's like all happy, it's all fine and good. But I laughed at these kind of I laughed at the different moments that should have been much more difficult and in other films would have been. But here, Agnes is having them fall in love in a very simple and like almost too quick of a way. Like he goes to her house and he's like, I love you. And she's like, I love you too. And I don't care that you're with someone and it's all going to work out and we're going to be great. It's like so simple and so fast and unrealistic that, again, I think that she's shining a light on like, this is what maybe an ideal situation might look like. So here it is. And then you laugh at it because it would never actually happen. Like any ideal situation of falling in love with some other woman, if it looks like this, it would be laughable. It would be absurd. So although it's simple and subtle, I think it's actually complex underneath.
Yeah.
Its surface.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like this fantasy of him getting everything that he wants and everything sort of working out along the way. And I feel like we have to kind of pull in the ending as well, just because like that's such a, that colors the entire film, how it ends. But it feels like when she disappears at the park at the end and he finds out that she's drowned and she's passed away, that feels like it should be the shattering of the fantasy, that he's not gotten everything that he wants, but it still works out, it still seems that everything's going to be okay for him, and that he's not going to be too broken, too, torn up about this, that he can have a new wife and move on, he still gets to have the perfect family. It doesn't really matter, that his wife died. So that's like, subversive. That's complicated there.
You're right. That is definitely the most clear critique she has towards the patriarchy overall, is that women being the second sex, as Simone de Beauvoir put it in her book on philosophy. Are they replaceable? Is it really that simple for men that you could say you love this person, the mother of your child, but when shit hits the fan, what are you going to do? Are you just going to immediately look for another woman? And that is, sad fact of life is that is the way it is. I've heard this said by various people that after divorce happens, stereotypically the man remarries more quickly, kind of trying to find a new mother in a way, a new woman to help raise his kids, and that's what you have here. You have the beginning scene, the family slowly walking towards the camera, and the ending scene, a family walking away from the camera. The only difference is that the woman is a totally different person.
Yeah,
that's a harsh critique if I've ever seen one. And so to say it's subtle, and to say that the subtlety of that is a critique, I think is, I don't know. I don't agree with that. I think that's how critiques should be made sometimes, because then it lasts. Like sometimes when art is not subtle, it's flashy, it upsets people, it it kind of sometimes has the possibility of just coming and going.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas if you're subtle, there's a richness to it, and it can stick, and it can be sort of timeless, which I think this is.
Yeah, I think this sticks with you, even if you feel like you have the read on it. Like, you're still going to be thinking back on it. Because, yeah, there's like, I wonder if she felt like this was something that society had kind of foisted on us, this sort of patriarchal structure and this view of women as disposable, or if she feels like this is something natural to the relationship between men and women, because it feels like she is situating this family in nature. You know, we see them sort of in the forest at the beginning and then at the end, you know, in this sort of quasi-natural state. And there's like all these little ways that she shows how men are viewing women. It's hard to say, is it natural, is it societal? Like, they have these dances in the village, in the town, where you dance with your spouse and then you switch partners and you dance with someone else. And these are sort of like socially acceptable ways that we kind of like flirt with other people and explore the sort of natural way that, you know, we're attracted to more than one person. It's not something that like turns off when you decide to be in a committed relationship. There's also the point when his wife asks him, who do you prefer, Bridget Bardot or what's her name that she said was in the film with Bridget. But, you know, like we go to movies where we can kind of ogle at these beautiful actors and actresses. You know, we have ways of sort of exploring our attraction to other people. We don't totally suppress that. You know, this seems to be something that we accept as natural and acceptable in some way. But where does it cross the line, and where is the logical endpoint of that? Do you become okay with replacing your wife kind of without a worry, the same way that like you put these like pin-up pictures in your wood shed in your workshop, you know, where they have all the pictures of those actresses and stuff hanging up. Like, yeah, there's no sort of easy distinction here, and I wonder, she kind of leaves it for you to decide. You know, is this societal? Is this a natural thing? I don't know.
Yeah, she leaves it up for you to decide, for sure. And there's several pieces of this film that she does that with. I mean, she even leaves it up for you to wonder what happens to her in the pond. We don't really know, right? Does she fall in? Does she do it intentionally? We're not sure. And that comes right after one of the most Edenic, is that the word to say that? One of the most
idyllic?
Idyllic, yeah. I was thinking of the term for feeling like the Garden of Eden, where she's laying naked with him after that long scene of him trying to convince her that his love for this other woman's fine. You can tell she's not actually completely for it, by the way. And
yes.
There's a little bit of, you know what I mean? She's not 100% convinced. And also, I was thinking there's something where he sort of says, look, I'm really happy right now. So, and then he goes, well, you don't have to, you know, I want to make sure that you're okay and you're happy. So, you know, tell me what to do. Meaning like, oh, you don't have to say yes to this, but just so you know, I'm really happy right now. So,
yes,
you know, that's a loaded question in a way.
Yes.
So is she 100% convinced? No. And then they make love after that conversation. And then we see them later just sort of lounging there, laying there sort of peacefully. And then for some reason, we're not told why, she's found in the pond.
Yes. Yeah. That, it feels to me like that, you know, it becomes unbearable to her. And I know it's left ambiguous, but the way that I read it is, yeah, this is totally untenable because he is so bought into this, and he so truly believes that this is the right course of action, that he should be able to be with both of them, that he's not showing the sort of remorse at all, that he just wants to convince her. And yeah, how do you voice your concern, or how do you sort of be with someone who seems to be that so far gone, in believing that they're right?
Yeah, there's quite a darkness underneath that surface. And like you said, it's hard to get at. It's a very elusive, strange, twisted view of relationships and love.
Yeah. And then it's such a short, breezy film.
Yeah. Mozart playing the whole time.
Yeah.
Summery.
Yeah.
Colors. You have little like snippets of like a Wes Anderson type straight on shot of a building with a couple people on a bike. It's a very, it's one of the like most on the surface level delightful, summery, pleasant films that just breezes by. Like you said, it goes from summer to fall in one swell breeze.
Yeah, and all these little interactions with family and things, like there are sort of delightful characters that you get to know in this film. The uncle,
children,
the children, the oh my god, yeah, just like the children. It's incredible, and it makes sense that this is an actual family, because it feels like you couldn't get child performances like this. This is just them being real. And I love when she shows you that at the like picnic, that the little girl picks up the peppers and turns to whoever's behind the camera and is like showing them the peppers. Yeah. I love that that's left in the film, because these are just children being children. Yeah, it's so subversive to show you the sort of beauty of just regular people, and then suggest that they be capable of sort of betraying each other in this way.
Yeah, I'm thinking of I'm like trying to think of a way to compare it to Pierre Lafay or Godard in general. There's something about Agnes where I just get the sense that she's pulling from, and she's not pulling from more film. Of course, Godard did pull from everything, but it's like she's employing many of the same tactics that film used in the past. Like her film feels and looks like other films that came before it, like Bergman or Douglas Sirk, those types of things. And Godard, and by the time he gets to Pierre Lafay, it's like he's just, like we talked about this last week, he's just doing things that are, he's having fun at that point, just doing whatever he wants. And it doesn't feel, there's like a sense of it not being tethered to film history, what's supposed to be done. And you're left out in the open, you're left out just like wondering what we're doing half the time with a film like his. But with this, like you said, it feels delightful, it feels grounded, and there's such a sense of like, I don't know another way to put it, but like fullness, like a care. Godard doesn't really care, and Agnes cares. She cares a lot, and I love watching a film by her because I feel like she's super intentional with what she's doing. You can tell she thought it through. Yeah. You can tell that she's really gone to the Notebook and rewritten this story. It feels like she's really kind of thought this whole thing through, and then worked with people that maybe were her friends and maybe she knew, but I don't know if they've been in previous films of hers. Like she's working with an arrangement of people that she's found, whereas it feels like Godard is just like messing around with his friends.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I wonder if this was totally intentional on her part, or if it was she didn't get as many opportunities to make films, and she wanted to be more intentional each time and wanted to craft it very carefully. But yeah, let me see if this makes sense. So I feel like Godard is thinking about the sort of artificiality of Hollywood and other old films, that they would be very carefully crafted, but it was in an artificial way, and that every beat is designed, and after you watch enough, you sort of recognize how it's all sort of constructed and unreal. And so he's always sort of commenting on that and pulling that apart as a way of making something new and interesting. And it's still artificial. The pieces that he wants to work with, for the most part, in doing that, are still sort of the old conventions and the old beats of these types of films. And I think that Varda wants to do something different because she wants to go in a more documentary direction and pull from things that feel real, that feel like they haven't been shown on film before, and be very intentional and put a lot of detail into that, and really craft it like you would craft a documentary, where you want to show all the interesting little things that you find. But they're not things that were designed and constructed. They're things that she found in the real world. And in that way, it feels so different from a Godard film. I don't know. I find it more engaging in that way. There are some parts here, like the death, where she sort of shows him holding his wife's body from these like different angles, and sort of underlines the scene multiple times. Those sort of flourishes kind of take me out a little bit, but for the most part, like, I much prefer, I think, her films to Godard's because of what I think is that approach that she's bringing so differently from the way that Godard approaches making films at this time.
Yeah, I think that's well put. Yeah, and I agree. I agree with that. Partway through the movie, I was thinking also in terms of, why it did feel unique and different, and I couldn't pin it down, and I was trying to imagine or remember other films I've seen that remind me of it, and I was struggling to do so. I can think of other directors who remind me of this film. I'm thinking of, like I said, Bergman or Todd Haynes a little bit. I feel like he maybe have had some taken some inspiration from Agnès, but I struggled to connect this film to anything else. Does anything come to mind for you?
Gosh, I'm thinking of All We Imagine Is Light, and I don't know, things that feel sort of a little neo-realist.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is I feel like I've heard her compared to like Chantal Akerman, some of these women that will come after her that I don't have the familiarity with yet, because I think that's her perspective that she brings as part of what makes it feel so fresh. What she does is really tricky. Someone like a Sean Baker, filmmakers like that will
Mm-hmm.
pick out non-actors that just feel so interesting, and kind of give you an extra little cheat code to make your movie feel different and new. Sean Baker does that. I think Uncut Gems, the Safdies. I think the Safdies like to do that too. Find non-actors and find these interesting locations to shoot in and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then are they, those guys, they love your like kind of gritty, genre-y, like 70s type movies, They don't do something as sort of playful and light and...
Yeah, well, you might end up with something like La Terra Trema.
Yeah, the Visconti.
Where that's like beautiful, but you are reminded often in the way the acting is that it's non-actors. Because, as wonderful as that film is in many ways, it be using non-actors for drama and for like close-up scenes of relationship dynamics, things like that. You are reminded that they're non-actors just based on their acting. So that's the risk you run. Here she does it quite well. These are non-actors that she casts.
So yeah, I actually don't know about most of the cast. I know the main guy, Jean-Claude Drew, is an actor. I would guess that his family aren't actors, and I think that would be interesting. I think his wife is really good in this film. They're so like believable together, but it feels like that might be difficult to act with your husband on a film. Like they manage to just act very naturally together. I did just think of another film called Ticket of No Return, which is this late 70s German film by Ulrich Oettinger. She's a really interesting filmmaker who I think is definitely influenced by Varda and is, incorporating different performers and non-performers and interesting bits of like actors interacting with just real people on the streets. And there aren't a lot of people willing to sort of do what Varda does with these films, but it is so interesting.
Well, now I'm thinking of how, Buñuel took with Viridiana, or even The Exterminating Angel. Is that what it was that we watched?
Well, both of them.
Well, but I'm just thinking how he takes the kind of Renoir, kind of rules of the game, kind of bourgeoisie dynamics, and what he's doing there is he's sort of taking that and exposing, sometimes in a subtle way, but he's exposing what they're like, and he's doing it in a way that's sort of satirical. It's a strangely satirical thing. I mean, in that case, it's even more satirical. But there's something a little satirical about what Agnès is doing here that reminds me of that. And did you ever see Scenes from a Marriage?
No.
That keeps coming to my mind because I think that's like the most similar movie I think I've seen, just in its narrative of a marriage, and in the way that it's like shining a light on the problems of marriage, sometimes being that one or two of the people are trying to be too happy about their marriage and they're not willing to look at the darkness. And it being, very, subtle in that way, but also this kind of idea that one or two of the characters want their marriage to be perfect and happy. But in order to do that, there's a sort of sacrifices made that they don't talk about. And regardless, they're not really talking about the struggles at all. The funniest thing about this movie is that it's so quick and simple with the feelings of love being expressed. It's almost like an ideal perspective that one could imagine from a man.
Exactly.
Like, it's cartoonish, but it's revealing in like, a man just wants to be like, I love you, and this is all good, and then for the woman to be like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And forgetting that there's a whole world of emotions to uncover and discuss and go through.
Yeah. And I'll be here once a week, or every 3 days or something. And okay, cool. Yeah.
It would have been interesting, I guess, now that I think about that, it would have been interesting for Varda to have put a scene in where the wife is sort of upset about something. Could be anything. She just becomes upset, kind of crying or something like that. And to see how he would have reacted. I would have been curious to know how she assumed he would respond. Would he have been able to hear her and be with her? Or would he have said certain things to try to quicken the process that she had to go through to get back to his expectation of her to be happy?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think what we don't see is sort of the early parts of their relationship where he is someone that says basically, don't cry, don't cry, be happy. And she just learns that it doesn't, she has to sort of suppress it. She's not going to get anything out of him as someone who can commiserate in any way.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes the sort of self-delusion of thinking that you are happy with the arrangement. But there's something just ready to be let out inside you that is deeply troubled by it.
Mm-hmm. You're left with a lot of wondering here. You have to wonder what is going on with her, and that contrast of wondering what's going on with her with this guy's kind of delusional happiness is that's where the film's sharpness comes into play.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of wondering. There's a lot of mystery.
Yeah. What's crazy is women didn't have the right to vote in France until 1944. Basically, like when they, they kind of reestablished their government after World War II. Like, wow, man, it's and this is, just 20 years later, basically. Like, it's incredible to make a film like this, and it stands up, like, thank goodness that she had the sort of conviction to make films and to make them so honestly and be kind of confrontational with the audience.
Yeah, and and also given the fact that voting rights for women didn't happen until that year, that means that Agnes's first film was like a decade after she could vote. She made her first film a decade after she could vote.
Yeah. And that's sort of like she was what? She was like 25 or not even at that when she made her first film. Like it had to be someone who was coming of age, when the sort of horizon of what was possible for women was expanding, and you would be allowed to sort of dream bigger, and not feel grinded down by a life of living in a world where you're just totally second-class citizen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what Agnes is doing here, she's showing that even if the woman is taken care of, let's say, and loved and appreciated to some extent, that she's still second class.
Yeah.
She's still. I mean, if she's replaceable, if she's no longer, let's say, good enough or pleasing the man enough to be the only woman in his life, like he said that would be so easy like that, she can become a second. There's a Simone de Beauvoir quote. I don't know the quote, but I think it came from her, where she said, like, even the most mediocre of men view themselves as better than women.
Yeah.
And that feels like that with this film. Like this is a mediocre guy. Like he's just a guy. He's a happy guy, right? He's nothing crazy special about him. But there is this feeling that he's able to do this because he has a privilege. And that privilege just doesn't belong to the women.
Yeah, he's allowed to dream, to imagine that he's the center of the universe, basically. That's what privilege has afforded him.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so crucial to a film like this, any sort of radical, examination of society, that you have to think continually about how can society improve and be better, even after things improve, even after there are great gains. We have to continue to examine and critique and all these things. I just got to see Lizzie Borden's Born in Flames, which is an incredible film because it's imagining a world post a sort of socialist movement in the United States that radically changes the government. And then people still have to advocate for equal rights and continue to fight for things, while so many people are saying, but look how much better it is than it used to be. This is what is a constant, is that we have to question and break down what the norms are and what can still change. And yeah, that's exactly what she's showing, even in these sort of perfect relationships, you know, where a woman gets to express herself and be all these things. She is still second class. She is still going to come second to what the man wants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of now actually this book by Sally Rooney that I had read a little while back called Normal People. Have you heard of this author?
Yeah, I've heard. This is the one that got made into the TV show, right?
Yeah. Or am I thinking of Normal People? No, I'm not Normal People. I'm Conversations with Friends. What's interesting about Conversations with Friends is actually a very similar narrative, a very similar story where you are following the protagonist, the girl, and she kind of falls in love with this guy who's already in a marriage. And he's committed to that woman. He loves his wife, but they you know, they're struggling in some sense, and they're not as in love as they used to be, but they're committed to each other still. But he also loves the protagonist now, and they develop a relationship. But what is different about this novel that Sally Rooney is doing is she's allowing the protagonist, the female, to have the decision making. Like she has more control and more power. It's like she's the one that's like, I want to do this, and I want you to love me despite the difficulty that this creates among all of our friends and all that stuff. But like she's the one that's making the decisions. It could be gray. There's a gray area there because you're like, well, how much is the male character, like, you know, potentially manipulating in certain ways? But it seems like she has more of the control, more of the say. And that's how she flips this similar story. Is in Agnès Varda's film, the woman has no decision-making process here. And then the one decision she makes is like, again, it's like based on his happiness and whether or not she'll take it away from him, right? It's like a loaded question, like we said. But with Conversations with Friends, the woman has that. The woman has the say. So it's not so simple to say, obviously, that this couldn't happen, that a man could be married to a woman and also be with another woman. In a sense, that could happen. It's more about like who has autonomy. And as long as everybody has equal autonomy, truly, then we don't know yet, and there's room to wonder. But anytime somebody loses autonomy, especially a woman, you're looking at
trouble.
Yeah.
This is why polyamory is so fraught. Is just because, these relationships are built on imbalances, and it's so hard to get away from that. You know, you deal with that and like trying to deal with the government and you know, other people in your life. You know, they're gonna expect you to favor one partner. You know, there's so many different ways that you know, trying to imagine polyamory is made difficult by the world around us and what we have internalized because of that too.
Yeah. Did you see? Well, probably not. But there's my wife and I watch Couples Therapy, which is a very great show, and it gives you an insight into relationships and how they work. But they did a polyamorous relationship in the last season. It was fascinating because you have these preconceived notions like, oh, this is going to be interesting or strange or different. But you end up getting a glimpse into what it's like, and it's just that it's different from the stereotype of what has been done. And yeah, it's way more wrought with conflict, but
in a way,
it's also something that is new.
Yeah, it's new. In a way, I think it probably forces you to think more intentionally about people's autonomy and their needs and how those are being met, you know, more than sometimes we do in monogamous relationships where we take things for granted. But of course, that's something that's really difficult. And I've encountered plenty of polyamorous people that don't do a great job at those things, just like in everything.
Yeah, exactly.
This was one to have a very kind of broad discussion about, and there's tons of fun little moments in this film, but they almost kind of speak for themselves, It's fun to think of them all together, what they all say as a whole.
Yeah, what the French were doing at this time feels like it's better to have a kind of broad conversation and a kind of a meandering one than it is to kind of go through it chronologically or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's so free, it's so novel, and they're trying so many new things. And so, yeah, it feels like to talk about these films is to kind of let your mind wander and be inspired wherever it goes.
Yeah, yeah.
My only thought, as I've asked you this before, I am just curious. You've seen Pointe Courte and Cléo 5 to 7 now, and now this one. And I know we watched Vagabond, but that comes decades later. So of the three, which one is your favorite?
That's tough. I want to watch Cléo again because I really loved that. It's tough between that and Bonheur.
Yeah, the joke here, I guess, could be like you. Is it okay to love them all equally?
Yeah, right. She's doing such different things,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to rewatch Cléo, see how that sits with me the second time. There's so many interesting things that she's doing in that. This feels pretty self-assured. This is a very, I know what I'm doing, and I can get in and out and kind of tell this complete story, it's pretty incredible. There are parts of Cléo where you're sort of looking at your watch, so to speak, just because it is structured around this real-time telling of the story, where you're going okay, so we're pretty close to the end. I guess we've got this many sort of bits to go. This film is pretty breezy. It's sort of an easy watch until, well, I don't know, not an easy watch, but I don't know. I think it's pretty virtuoso. And maybe I put this at the top. What would you say?
Yeah, I love that. You got me thinking about it in a different kind of way, but I think I would go with Cléo. I would almost want to go with the first one too, but it's so melodramatic.
Yeah.
As a film in and of itself, the melodrama is difficult and dated. So much of it is new and interesting, but that part is, slow for sure. But Cléo 5 to 7 really amazed me. I think you're right. I'd have to watch it again. And but for now, I'll just go with I would say that Cléo 5 to 7 for now.
Yeah, I'd be very curious to watch more of her features and see how they compare. Now that I think besides what's the Gleaners and I, we've watched all of the big canonical ones now. Mm-hmm. She's got, right after this year, she's got another one called Les Creatures or something like that. Les Creatures. And I'm very curious how that compares. But she's one of the greats, man.
Mm-hmm. She really is. She really is. So, so if you haven't watched it yet, make sure you go watch all of her first 3 films.
Yeah.
Including this one. And then watch... What are we doing next week?
Next week, we talk about Materialists, the new film from Celine Song, which I guess is turning out to be the most provocative film of the year so far. I don't know. As well as... what else are we talking about?
We're going to do a little Berlinale retrospective. We're going to talk about what our experience was like going to what was both of our first kind of major film festival, and some of the films we saw, including the one that won the Golden Bear. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Is it called Dreams? I get them confused because they put it's like part of a trilogy, Love, Sex, Dreams, and they put all three names on the poster.
Yeah, that's right. Dreams. And we both loved Rod A. Jude's film, Do Not Expect Much from the End of the World. So we're going to talk about Continental and If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, which is a film coming out by A24. Who knows when? I mean, there's no sign of that yet, but probably this year or next. And the other films we saw too. So,
and then the week after that will be our first Soviet film. We're watching Sergei Rajanov's Shadows of Forgotten Ancestors, another 1965 film. This is a Ukrainian film.
Tune in for that.
Tune in and check out more thoughts on Letterboxd as well.
And also email us with any questions or thoughts you have. And
all right, till next time.
Till next time.
Peace.
Peace.